Good morning, everyone. Or actually, I should say good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while that I've done just something random, you know, and so found this awesome fucking interview, and I thought I might just share it with all y'all. In case some of y'all don't get it, I got it, and I'm gonna share it. And this is how it's gonna go. It's Dr. Phil interviewing President Trump. Want me to go ahead and start it or wait for you, Mom? Okay, here we go, guys. You guys are only going to get the audio part of it. And no, I'm not making any money off. This is for complete entertainment purposes only.
Last week, 12 jurors deliberated for 2 days and rendered a verdict finding Donald Trump guilty on all 34 charges of falsifying business records, leading to an unprecedented felony conviction of not only a former president, but also the front-runner nominee for the Republican Party. Donald Trump has professed his innocence and defiantly outside the courtroom called the trial a disgrace, rigged, and claimed the real verdict will happen when the presidential votes are counted on November 5th. I traveled to Mar-a-Lago to sit down one-on-one with President Trump for an unfiltered, no-holds-barred interview. And I promise you, no topic was off limits. But I don't endorse candidates, so I want to sit down with President Biden and Kennedy as well, because everybody needs to vote, and not just vote, but make informed votes.
It's an honor to be with you. Let me just say, it's great looking at that logo. I've seen that sucker a long time.
Yeah, you look well.
I feel good.
Do you?
Good. No pressure.
Yeah.
It's nice to lead a life of no pressure whatsoever. Yeah. Corruption, surrounded by corrupt judges and corrupt politicians. Other than that, there's no pressure.
But, you know, you and I talked the other night, and I work in trial sciences for a lot of my career, and so I have a particular interest in the dynamics of the trial setting. You're fighting this fight and standing up for the rights of due process and fighting against prosecutorial misconduct and prosecutorial abuse.
You know, it was interesting when you called the other day about doing an interview. A lot of people want to do interviews, and I don't just agree to them very easily. But I've always had great respect for you. I watch your show, some of the real good ones and some of the less intellectual ones, and that's okay too. But it's always been, you've always been very special. And I knew that you were
outside, bitch.
in some form very much involved with trials. And I found it to be very interesting that you would take this up. It's a very important thing.
Well, I wanted to, and I know that there was some news coming out of Georgia today. There was some news coming out of Florida today that they're stepping back from this. And
very good news.
I called for the other day, and I don't know if you saw it, but on Merritt Street Media, where I now do my show,
in Florida are
I called for President Biden to stop all of this now. And of course, a lot of people said, oh, he can't stop it. It's a state case. Well, okay, that's an explanation for stupid people. But for people that understand how this works behind the scenes and all.
Let me say this. For those of y'all that don't know, federal always oversteps state. So no matter, they can sit there and say that, you know, the federal government, you know, the feds can't intervene in this trial. Yes, they can, because federal always over trumps state. Sorry, that's how it is, people. So yes.
That's how they're treating the wall.
Yeah. So
Texas
say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, prime example. You know, a state steps in doing what they need to do under their own jurisdictions. And, you know, it's just, the only way to explain it is that the federal government only selects what they want to take part in. So,
Not the people.
Exactly. So let's get back to this interview.
They need to stop this. They need to stop pursuing you, since you started your campaign in 2015 to run for office, there have been so many attempts to get you off the board even before you started your campaign. Then once you were in office, 2 impeachment opportunities, they changed the rules to try to make it high crimes and misdemeanors, and there were business conflicts, and in this case,
But they're not doing nothing to Hillary with Benghazi. They're not doing it with Biden with all the bullshit that he's doing right now. But we're gonna fucking go after the one guy who's gonna make a big difference in this country and make America better again. I'm sorry, make America great again.
Never ends.
it seems to be never ending, and that is a distraction to you. And I really wonder how that affects you. What do you say to yourself about that? Because it seems to never be ending.
It's a never-ending thing. There's a term that I know you've heard many times. It's called Trump derangement syndrome.
Right.
And nobody's ever seen anything like it. In one way, we drive them totally crazy because we're doing the right thing.
Yep.
You wonder, why would somebody want to have open borders where people are coming in from jails, prisons, where they're coming in from mental institutions, and as you know better than
Cartels.
anyone else, they're coming in, they're releasing the people all over the world, not just South America, from mental institutions and jails and prisons, and they're terrorists coming in by the thousands. They're pouring into our country. And who would allow this? You know, it's common sense, not a conservative thing. If they would devote that same skill and talent to making America great again, it would really be a wonderful thing. But in the meantime, we're beating them. You know, you mentioned I got impeached twice and I won twice very easily, very quickly. We had great support from the Republican Party. I have all these cases all my life. I didn't have any problem. And all of a sudden, within a matter of months, I end up with 4 cases. Now, of course, it's from the White House and the Department of Justice. They totally control the state case. In fact, I'm not allowed to even be talking about certain aspects of it because I have a gag order. Think of it. I'm the Republican nominee. I was the president, and I'm leading the current.
Here's the thing, though, America. The courts may be able to force a gag order on President Trump to not speak against, but you know what? That gag order does not pertain to us, we the people. Speak the fuck up, people, and speak your truth.
Democrat by a lot. And I have a gag order from a local judge that was appointed by the Democrat Party. A local judge. He's a local person, and he is appointed. And he put a gag order in me. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
While you're campaigning,
while I'm campaigning, like you just mentioned, a question that I'm not allowed to talk about.
Right?
Can you imagine? I'm the Republican nominee, and I'm not allowed to talk because a local judge from New York, appointed by Democrats, said I can't talk about it. It's so unfair. And then he gives a jury charge. Nobody's ever heard of a charge like this. He gave instructions to the jury. And by the way, the jury happened to be at a location that was almost no Republicans. You understand that?
Yeah, it's 87-13 in the last 2 elections, Republican. And I know you can't talk about it. I'm not under a gag order. I do know that the number 3 person in the Department of Justice took a pay cut and went down in stature to go to a state job and become one of the lead prosecutors in this case. But yet they say, hey, Dr. Phil, why are you saying that that President Biden needs to stop all of this? It's a state case. That's exactly why I'm saying it. Don't be naive, people. Understand that there's a power play going on
here. It's controlled by the White House and the DOJ. 100%.
You know, Gerard Baker wrote in Wall Street Journal today, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, what do we say to those people that are rejoicing over reducing law to the status of a weapon in the hands of the dominant political power? Because that's what's happening right now. It's become a weapon. And that's not what it's intended for. That's not what we need to be doing. I mean, let's let the people decide these, right?
That's right. That was a very good statement in the Wall Street Journal. I read that this morning. And it's so true. I mean, it's so accurate. They've weaponized to a level. They are trying to affect the election by demeaning, hurting in any form. And by the way, I think after the election, the hatred's great enough that they'll go, but with much less enthusiasm. This is about November 5th, which I think is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. If we don't turn this around, we're not going to have a country left anymore.
Well, we're a country of laws, right? I mean, and that's what's made us so orderly. That's what's allowed us to progress forward. And there's something that are called hornbook laws or black letter law that is just, these things are just been around so long. And these were violated in your case, one right after the other. For example, you don't let someone that has been charged in the same case as someone else, and they made a plea deal and said, okay, I'm guilty of doing this because they were intimidated into doing it. The lawyer in your case, we don't even need to speak his name, he bartered around out from under 65 years, looking at 65 years of imprisonment down to 3 years and 2 years on this case and a tax case. So went from 65 years down to 5 years in exchange for giving them testimony against you. That's not supposed to come in, but it did. Pecker making a deal, a non-prosecution agreement. That's not supposed to come in, but it did. That got into the jury box. They got to hear all of that. And so they said, well, you know, if we're not down here for the reasons they're saying, then we need an alternative explanation, which they're not allowed to get because your expert witness that was going to come in and say, as a former chairman of the election commission, was going to say this was looked at. There's no issues here. They didn't allow that person to talk, to testify. And I'm looking at this saying, how is the jury supposed to solve this problem if they don't have all the pieces to the puzzle?
They wouldn't listen to him. They wouldn't talk to him. They didn't want to hear his testimony.
Because the Democratic Party want to keep it a one-sided story. That's why.
They knew what he was going to say. He was going to say it was 100%. And very importantly, when they tell somebody, you're going to jail for 15 years, unless you say bad things about this guy named Trump. Okay? Now, in all fairness, we know a lot of great people, but you don't know too many that would say, I'm not going to do what they want.
Yeah.
He goes up to somebody and they say, Dr. Phil, you're going to jail for 15 years unless you say bad things about Trump. And if you say the bad things, you're not going to jail at all. In fact, we're going to make you a hero. Or you're going to go for 3 months, or you're going to go for a short period of time. How many people are there that say, you know, I'm not going to do that? There have been people,
Yeah, that's right.
and those are, in my opinion, these are great people. What they've done to people that work for me is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. The threats, the taking of a gentleman who's been with me for years and telling me he's going to jail for 15 years unless they say, and he went back to jail a second time. I guess they didn't want him to testify. I don't know what happened exactly, but the threats that they made to this man, they've destroyed his life. These are fascists. You know, these are really bad people, Phil. But who's going to do it? You're going to jail for 15 years, or you're going to go for 30 days or 40 days, or you're going to go for no time, but you have to say bad things about Trump.
Yeah. And that's intimidation. And you and some of these
That's
people,
blackmailing.
you look at their age, you look at their health, and
Everybody
That's blackmailing. That's extortion. But yet they want to punish Trump for what? Standing up for we the people. Meanwhile,
not make it an option.
Biden and his party get to extort people, threaten people, blackmail people, all types of things to people, and they get away with it. What did you want to say?
and for some of it could be a death sentence. And so they make a deal, and
threatening
that's
death
what I talk
sentences
about.
on
That's what I mean
people.
when I say prosecutorial abuse.
Mm-mm-mm.
Did anyone ever approach you and try to get you to make a deal, drop out of the race, make a deal here, we'll leave you alone? What do you say to yourselves when the crowds aren't cheering? What is the hardest, darkest moment?
We're a
But the thing
nation
is,
that's in tremendous trouble. Our country's in tremendous danger of
there is no silent crowds for Trump because we're all fucking cheering for him. He doesn't have one
Yeah,
quiet
that's dark.
audience. Now let's go over to Biden's party. And the only people
They just
showing up,
went to the dark side, period.
the only people showing up to his rallies are Trump supporters saying "fuck Joe Biden." That's awesome.
World War III. But the hardest part for me is probably my family.
Has there been blowback on Barron because he's younger and
Yeah,
more
it's
vulnerable?
not easy, but I don't think I've ever said this on air before.
Try out the Merit Plus app. Search for the Merit Plus app on your Apple or Android phone, tablet, or streaming device to download and watch for free.
This is our network.
Get ready to watch
And I'm
all
glad
your
I
favorite
found
shows,
it.
including exclusive Dr. Phil content, news
yeah.
updates, and great entertainment all in one place. Download Merit Plus for free and take us with you wherever you
I
go.
can't wait to see his interview with the Democrat.
I know.
Did anyone ever approach you and try to get you to make a deal, drop out of the race, make a deal here, we'll leave you alone?
Excuse me.
No, they didn't, but I believe they would if I would have offered that up. I think they know me well enough. I really do. But if I didn't run, as an example, I would have never had any of these lawsuits.
Nope.
How about I get prosecuted on a person that I have no idea who she is? I have no idea who she is. I have to pay $91 million. And that judge was just as bad.
91
Just
million.
as corrupt. A corrupt judge. I have to pay $91 million to a woman. I have no idea who she is. She wrote a book and she made a statement in the book. And you know that case. That case is a disaster. And then but I have no idea who she is. And they said I did things. These people are corrupt and in some cases incompetent. But it's such an honor to have somebody like you see it and see it so clearly. And I knew that, I remember that years ago you were helping Oprah out and she was sued and it was having a big impact on her.
Bad character.
And I thought it was great. And Oprah used to really like me. She was here many times.
Yeah.
She loved my key lime pie. We have key lime pie and she loved a lot of things about Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah.
And Roger King, as you know.
Yeah, we were here for the funeral for
Until Oprah's like, I can't be your friend no more because the party I support don't like you. Good, because Trump don't need Oprah up in his shit.
No.
She's full of bad jujus anyway. And for the record, y'all, Oprah claimed to have been molested as a child. I think that is a lie. The way she acts doesn't say, a child that has been victimized.
Especially when she opened up an all-girls
Yep.
school in Africa.
And what
And now we
happened?
don't
Hear
hear
nothing
about
about it. Why? And people, do your research. People are coming after Oprah on that, because there have been reports of these girls missing from Oprah's school over in Africa. Oprah has ties to Jeffrey Epstein.
Friendships with Weinstein.
Is it Weinstein or Weinstein?
Oh, Weinstein.
Weinstein. Yeah. You can't claim to be a child, a victim of molestation as a child when you're doing the same fucking things. Allegedly. She's a sick woman. That's who Oprah is. She's very sick.
Look how
she treated
went to Switzerland and was in that boutique,
Louis Vuitton store.
and because she is black,
She
assumed they were
like America, gonna play the race card.
yeah, and they ain't about that. They don't.
It's
play
Switzerland. Oprah going to a different country playing the fucking race card. Shame on you, you fucking heifer. Let's get back to Trump because that's the focus here. But Oprah's a fucking conniving little evil witch.
That bitch.
Correct. A long time ago, it's the only funeral we've ever had at Mar-a-Lago. I said, maybe we can do a new business here. We'll operate as a funeral parlor. But it was one of the most beautiful funerals in the ballroom behind us. And he was a great guy. And Oprah's terrific. But once I announced I was running and I said, we have to have strong borders, we have to have this, we have to have that, we've sort of lost contact, as the expression goes. But I remember when you were very much involved in helping Oprah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's been time and
Because Oprah is part of the problem.
time again. And that was another black letter law that you just don't do. The judge tells you, okay, you can testify, but I'm going to allow them to ask you about this person that you now owe $91 million. I'm going to allow them to ask you about this other case. I'm going to allow them to ask you about 10 contempt citations that I've given you. I'm going to allow them to ask about all that stuff. What does any of that have to do with the matters at hand? And the answer is zero. That gets into the jury box if you take the witness stand again, that is black letter law. You can't let in unrelated things that have more prejudicial impact than probative nature. That just doesn't happen, but it happened 1, 2, 3 things right in a row,
Right.
and that gets in the
If
jury
you
box.
testify, they'll be able to ask you about all these different things. And by the way, if you say one thing if you say it was a beautiful day, as I remember it, and it was raining out, we're going to indict you for perjury.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, I have a lot of lawyers that are friends and this and that. I had probably 25 guys over the course of a couple of months say, whatever you do, don't testify, because you'll say something that's a little bit off and you will be indicted for lying, for perjury. These are evil people.
Yep.
These are sick, evil people.
Oh, I would have thrown myself in front of your car to keep you from testifying.
No, I wanted to so badly. And by the way, I would have loved to have testified about those things because it was so corrupt and so horrible. But he wouldn't have allowed me to answer the questions properly. And so I would have loved to have testified. I wanted to. I'm telling you, they had to hold me back. But every lawyer that came, they'd always start to say, by the way, I'm afraid of you, don't testify. And they saw what he was doing. They can ask you about like anything.
You
They
can see it coming a
nothing to
mile
do with this
away.
case. All
What
of
the
these
Democrats are
outside things.
planning.
And it was really an unfair trial.
Desperate.
There's a very brilliant judge in Florida that's holding the government. It looks like, she's looking into what happened because, they raided Mar-a-Lago.
Right.
And they took stuff out by the satchel. They took bags and bags and stuff. And I said, what are they taking? Are they saying what they're taking? Because they can add things. They can add the nuclear codes in there. They say, hey, he had the nuclear codes. And this was all stuff that under the Presidential Records Act, I'm allowed to do. By the way, Biden was totally exonerated. Now, I'm not sure I want that kind of an exoneration. They basically said he's incompetent to stand trial, but he could be president. Think of that. He's not sharp enough, got no memory, got no this, got no that. He's incompetent. Basically, they're saying he can't stand trial due to incompetence, but he can run for president. What's going on?
Yeah.
What are we missing?
We're missing that important puzzle piece
about that state of affairs
that don't
And
exist.
What I was concerned about with everything that happened in this New York trial is one of the big myths is that the burden of proof lies with the prosecution.
Mhm.
That is the law. But I can tell you, after years and years and years of trial, the truth is that the jury sits there and says, I'm looking at all this, and if we're not down here for the reason they say we're down here, somebody needs to give me an alternative explanation of why we are down here. So if we're not down here because of what the prosecutors are telling us, then what's the alternative story? What's the alternative explanation? And when you get muzzled in the way that this judge muzzled this case, they're sitting there saying, what's the rest of the...
How can they pick, a dozen people for a jury? From all kinds of educations and backgrounds. But we're all the bottom shelf of citizens being
But did you
selected.
hear what he?
I don't want to lose this. But where was it? They
The
can
jury's
select
the
these
bottom
people,
shelf.
no matter what education level there is, making big decisions on stuff they don't have no knowledge of. So why are they already plucking out people to call in for jury selection
Did you
by going through their background to see if they qualify for judgment?
But did you hear what he said? Reason why Trump's lawyer wasn't going to let him testify because they're looking for certain words to hold against you.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same strategy with the jury.
Okay.
So you got someone that's not, that's not even affiliated with a political party. They're just doing their duty because it's their duty as a citizen for jury. But what the Democrat side is doing is they're looking for specific words that will twist and be like, yeah, we don't want this jury. Get them off. Next.
Yeah.
So they're doing the same strategy with the jury selection. You say one little certain word that may go against the party, and they're going to be like, yeah, no, you're narrow-minded. You're for that
now
party.
They're selecting all
So like
Democrats in the jury.
right. So like they've been saying for the last few years, you get good things if you voted right. Meaning if you voted Democrat, you get all the perks and pluses. But like I've been saying, if you voted Biden, you people should be paying the high gas prices. You people should be paying the fucking high inflation, the cost of living, all that. You got, since Biden has come into office, the cost of everything has gone up from 30 to 50% since he's taken office. That's why we have such a high inflation, because it's gone up from 30 to 50%. Do your research, people.
Part of the agenda.
So, yeah.
Story, you're not allowed to testify because you're in jeopardy if you do. They let all of this other stuff in and should never get into the jury box. And so, the scales get tipped, and it gets very, very difficult to get even one juror.
And for the record, everyone, I have not watched this before. I'm watching this for the first time with you. Because what I just spoke about is kind of like what he's getting ready to like explain. So I'm just letting y'all know. I did not watch this. I just downloaded the app and just hit play on this. So we're watching it together, all together for the first time. Okay, y'all?
Because there's not an alternative story.
We're going to go back
And
10
so,
seconds.
The scales get tipped, and it gets very, very difficult to get even one juror because there's not an alternative story that if you could tell without being in peril, if you could tell without being intimidated, it would be a very different situation. The burden legally is on the prosecution, but logically with the jury,
until proven innocent.
that's exactly the truth.
I can tell you that's the truth with me.
That's how it plays out. And I did a focus group about this when I did a show on this on Merritt Street, and I had 250 people in, did a focus group, and I said, and overwhelmingly the people were in your favor. But I found those that had questions, and I said, what is your question? They said, where there's smoke, there's fire.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the other part of it.
I'm sitting here, and you've asked me indirectly a couple of questions. They're so simple to answer. I'd love to. Yeah. And yet if I do, this guy's he's willing to throw you in jail. Okay. This is an appointed judge acting. He's an acting judge appointed, and he's willing to throw you, and he's so conflicted. It's so sad. But you do things for your country. And I view it, I think if my country weren't involved, because people say, the two questions, I get these questions from very tough guys like you, the biggest guys on Wall Street, the people that you read about, but they're tough men and women. But I have the question asked often is number one question again, how do you stand it? How do you do it? How do you get up in the morning and put your clothing on and go to work? I do get that because people don't envy it. And the other one I get is, will they do it again? Meaning, will they cheat? Will they do it again?
Yes.
Will it happen again?
Well, I have a different question than that how question. My question is why. I understand how. I know you got a thick skin. You're not one of those people that's afflicted with the need to be loved by strangers. I get that.
I think that's true.
My question is not how do you do it. My question is why do you do it? Why do you? Because let's face it. I mean, you're a billionaire. You got a great family. You're a very dedicated father. People may not see this in you a lot because you keep that kind of private. But my question to you is, why do you subject yourself to this?
So there's a movement in this country. It's called MAGA. And Biden's always fighting it. He will stop MAGA. MAGA is Make America Great Again. And we were doing, I had an administration that was a tremendous success. Even enemies. I mean, we had the greatest economy in history. We had the best job numbers in history. That's why I'm doing so well with the Black and Hispanic vote. They had the best job numbers they've ever had. We were doing things that were incredible. And I was going through Russia hoax. I was going through the impeachment stuff, all of that. And, in one way, I jokingly said, somebody said, can you imagine what he could have done? Because I had one of the most successful presidencies. And yet I was constantly fighting off the radical left lunatics. They are deranged. They are. It's like a derangement syndrome. But I actually said, maybe in some ways I did better because I showed something. But maybe if I had too much time on my hands, it would have gone too far, and the administration wouldn't have been as successful as it was. When you look at our job numbers, I rebuilt the military, largest tax cuts ever, largest tax cuts, bigger than the Reagan tax cut,
But higher
largest
revenue.
regulation cuts ever.
I'm staying with my why question because look at this. Everybody calls it inflation, but affordability. When we talk about gasoline under your administration, average $2.57 a gallon. Under Biden, $3.61, 40% more. Under your administration, homes average
Here we go with the percentage I just talked
$320,000.
about.
Under the Biden administration, 31% more, $420,000. Under your administration, interest rates 3.8 average. Under the Biden administration, 39% more at 5.3%. Okay, now let's look at the border. Under you, average 1.7 million border crossings. Their official number is 6.4. That's from Homeland Security. It's actually about 13 million because I know I've been to the border. I've talked to the border guards down there, Brandon Judd. I've talked to Jason Jones. I've talked to the people that actually know the numbers. They say it's between 10 and 13 million. So my point is when you look at the actual numbers, plus the things you just talked about, lower taxes, higher tax revenue, you look at that and you would say, my God, he should be running unopposed. I mean, why?
And these numbers, I appreciate it, and these numbers are really, I don't know, minimum.
Very conservative.
As an example, I had gasoline down to $1.87, not $2.57. It's now almost at $4. It's going to be at $5 very short. It's going way up.
I took very conservative numbers so people couldn't
Well,
argue.
interest rates, I was at 2.6%. They have 3.8, and now they're at 9%, 10%. You can't get money. So we did a great job. We did a great job.
Okay, so here's the question. Most people look at this from a standpoint of they ask themselves the question, is my life better under this administration or is it better under this administration? My quality of life, my ability to pay for my children's lunches, tennis shoes, getting them to the dentist, getting all of the different things that go to quality of life. And when we look at that, it's not even a close call. So why are people so energized against President Donald J. Trump?
Well, I think it's, to a certain extent, it's habit, not necessarily against me. I think Democrats vote out of habit. I'll give you an example. I was the best president for Israel ever. Golan Heights, all of the things I did for Israel, and yet I get less than 50% of the votes. It's shocking to me. And Biden's a disaster, and Obama was a disaster for Israel with the Iran nuclear deal that he approved, all the, which was basically a path toward nuclear weapons. And I say, why? And I say, it's habit. They're used to voting for Democrats. Black people.
No, the only reason why Obama is against Israel is because he's not Muslim. He's part of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is like some fucking, to me, it's like a knockoff. It's a knockoff of their, original, whatever, The uncool people made their own version of the fucking club. So.
Just like white people created Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. And that was George Soros who did all that.
People are used to voting for Democrats, but they're coming off it. They're smart. They're seeing what's happened. They're seeing criminal justice reform. They're seeing the black colleges and universities. I got it funded. They're seeing all of the things that I've done. Nobody could do what I did. I say that, and people sometimes smile, but it's actually true. I'm the best president for black people since Abraham Lincoln. And black people are seeing that. And we have numbers now that as a Republican, I don't think anybody's ever had. I hope they come out and vote for me.
I was just in Jerusalem and interviewed Prime Minister Netanyahu.
Yeah.
He said that the Abraham Accords, which you achieved, he said he didn't have the words to describe what it presented for Israel in terms of security, in terms of the ability to bring about peace and stability to that region.
It's very nice, by the way, that you say that. And by the way, great for the Arab community also. It was great for both.
Yeah,
And they're working so well. The only problem is we had 4 countries signed, real leaders. I would have had everybody signed up. I would have had Iran signed up. People laugh when I say that. Iran was broke. I said, anybody buys from Iran, you can't do business with the U.S. Iran was broke. They were down to almost no money. They had no money to fund Hamas or Hezbollah. They had no money. They were broke. They would have made a deal within a week after the election. That result was very dangerous for our country. But we did great things, and I think that's what people see. People want to go back to where we were.
you have high-level appointee positions that you didn't fill,
The way it
and
should be.
and thousands more mid-level positions that you didn't fill, and generated over $4 trillion in tax revenue for the first time ever,
Right.
with tax cuts, lower tax rates, higher tax
It
revenues.
brought business into the country.
So why are people so energized against you? Are you getting out messaged?
I think, no, I really believe it's 100 years. As an example, with African Americans, for 100 years, the Democrats have run the cities. 100 years. I used to say 50. They said, you're wrong. I said, you have to be kidding. It's 100 years. It's a habit. They get used to it, but they're learning that habit's being broken in a lot of different ways.
That's like, let's real quick, let's jump off this topic real quick because it kind of relates to this with the Democratic Party of ruling shit for the last 100 years. Who created taxes in America? The Democratic Party did.
Who created the welfare system?
The Democratic Party
Who
did.
created the housing program?
The Democrats did.
And do you see what's going on? They're focusing and abusing
Their
poor.
position. Their position is what they're
Yeah.
abusing. They found a little Ponzi scheme, whatever, to make us poor and them richer.
Just suck the
Just
life
like
out of us.
Pelosi down in California taking $200 million of tax
Of
dollars
her gated
to
community.
re-beautify a fucking park within her gated community. Our tax dollars. And do you think for 1 second we're allowed to go play on that little playground and shit that they
We
took?
ain't even going to be invited to the grand opening.
No. And I just don't see how people that are in the same situation as us down here in the fucking base of the fucking kingdom,
Promote.
that you people are just blind. You're blind sheep. You believe what this party is telling you, and they're doing nothing for you people. You know, I always ask a liberal or a Democrat, what's your party done for you? Because it looks like you're paying the same high gas prices as we are. It looks like you're paying the same high inflation as we are. But you voted for these people, and you should be getting special discounts, right?
Now, and we have jobs, or used to have jobs, that after a full year working, you get vacation pay, but you don't even get the time off for a vacation.
No, and if you inquire about your week's paid vacation, they fire your ass. At least in Oregon they do, because in the state of Oregon they have a law that is they have it's a clause where they can fire you without reason. So if you're not kissing your employer's nasty brown ass, then
Your days are numbered.
You're fired.
I don't know how many times I've been.
Pack
through
your
that.
fucking apartment up. You're about to lose it. You about to lose everything because you're not fucking licking my ass right. Let's get back to this interview.
I also think you have a fake news that doesn't report it the way they should be reporting it. Look,
Exactly.
the news has been proven to be totally fake. And it's 95% on the other side. That's the thing I don't understand. Why do people want open borders where millions of people have come into our country, and you see what's happening to the crime rate? You know, a stat came out the other day that's scary. In Venezuela, Caracas, different cities, they've moved many of these criminals out into the United States and now happily in a location near you, right near your house.
Venezuela, the Congo, they're emptying the prisons.
the Congo. We have many people coming out of the prisons of the Congo. But
Congo, in case some of y'all don't know geography, Congo's over there in Africa. So why? And that's my other question with these like fucking borders. We got motherfuckers coming from all around the fucking world coming up through the fucking south of the southern border.
Why are we having Chinese smuggled in at the border?
I mean, just last month there was a report of like 300 Chinese crossing over. 300. Last I checked, China was on the other side of the Pacific Ocean.
And wasn't if you're coming up out of South America and Central America, that was the focus. But we have people, and the people that come from across the oceans, they call refugees that they let in.
They're terrorists, in my opinion.
Prison populations are way down all over the world. Nobody wants to talk
except
about
ours.
It. Prison population and mental institutions, something
except
you deal with
America's.
a lot. You know more about a mental institution than I do. That's your world. You do better than anybody as far as I'm concerned. You know the population of mental institutions is way down because they've moved a lot of the most seriously ill people into our country.
Yep.
And Venezuela just announced that they're 72% down in crime. From 2 years ago.
That's because they sent it all up to America. Thank you.
You don't have to be a genius to realize they moved their prisoners out, but they moved their gangs. All the gang members are now in the United States, happily living in the United States.
And with all that being said, everyone, and please hear me when I say this, please do not be afraid of these people. That's what they want. Be the backbone that America needs right now.
Let's go back to being bullies for a while this shit's going on.
Like for reals. America needs a strong backbone. America don't got that right now.
By the mid-'80s,
I mean, all honesty, guys, I'm up in Portland right now. I went downtown over the weekend, and on my way back to where I'm at, I saw this fucking poster board up on a telephone pole. The people who put it up there literally had to have a high-ass fucking ladder, and they fucking had nuts, bolts, and washers attached, making sure this poster board doesn't go nowhere. And do you know what the scary thing about this poster board was, everyone? And I will be getting proof of this because I will be going back and getting pictures of it. But it was a poster board praising Hamas and ISIS. I even called the non-emergency police number to ask about that. That's kind of scary when you're in America and you're seeing stuff like this. Like I said, I will get my proof. I will go get pictures of this thing.
And like she also has said, when she spotted these posters, it was all about my head on
it was all about supporting Palestine. It's the Palestinian and the scary part is knowing that my fellow Americans are supporting them.
And our legal system was just nonchalant about her reporting these signs that are of terrorist.
I should be ashamed of myself for even fucking reporting them. I'm actually going to go remove them. If the code enforcement people won't do it, the law enforcement won't do it, real Americans won't do it, then I'll be that fucking American and I'll go fucking remove the fucking signs. That's an insult to America to see that shit on our own soil. But you know what? Let's get back to this interview because this is what it's about, okay?
The United States of America has become a dumping ground because of a very mentally deficient president. And it's not him. I don't believe it's it.
Let me say one more thing about that, okay? About those signs. Those signs tell me they're sleeper cells, active sleeper cells in our fucking country. Watch your backs, America.
In your backyard now.
This is what y'all wanted. Y'all wanted culture. Y'all wanted diversity. Y'all wanted illegals in our fucking country. But it's the wrong kind of people.
I do think he knows what's going on. I think he's sort of an evil guy, but he's not at the top of his game, and he never was very good at it. If you look at his foreign policy for years and years and years, you look at how bad he was on the crime bill in the 1990s, how he's been bad at everything, and he got lucky. Look, he ran 3 or 4 times when he would be, let's say, in normal shape, in good shape. He failed. He got it when shouldn't be here. He shouldn't be here. And he's dealing with President Xi, who I know very well. And he's dealing with Putin, who I know very well. And he's dealing with all of these leaders of these countries they don't like the United States. They don't like what it represents. And they are at the top of their game. They are vicious. They love their country, or they want success. You define it any way you want. We've become a failing nation. We're a nation that's in tremendous trouble. We have months to go, where we have somebody negotiating for us and dealing for us who is not up to par. He's not, and I'm not even saying now, I think 25 years ago he wasn't up to par, but he's dealing with President Xi of China. He's dealing with President Putin of Russia. He's dealing with Kim Jong-un of North Korea. He's dealing with very tough people that really are at the top of their game. I know them all. I know many more than that. And our country's in tremendous danger of World War III. Our country's, you look at what's going on with Ukraine now, you see what's happening, where they're talking about nuclear. They're bringing out the N-word, as I say. And they're talking about nuclear weapons, and they're talking about things that were never, in my White House, nobody ever uttered the word nuclear. Nuclear is a very bad word because of the power of weaponry. And we have a man that should not be dealing, and we're going to end up in a nuclear war. We're going to end up in World War III with this guy. And if the 5 months is a long time, we have 5 months to go before the election.
A lot can happen
Now
in
it's
that
even a little
time.
bit less. It's getting to be very close. Remember, you're early voting on September 22nd. Pennsylvania goes September 22nd. So it's really less, quite a bit less. But I really believe it's a very dangerous time because I think they're making moves. They love him as our president. They don't respect him. They think he's weak and incompetent. Now, one thing I'll say, he's surrounded by a lot of fascists and communists, but a lot of fascists, and they're young and they're smart. And that's who's running our country.
Well, let me ask you something then. Let's assume that you inherit a situation where American bombs are being used inside of Russia. Let's assume that you inherit that. We could wind up with World War III if we're not there already and it just hasn't been labeled yet.
We've never been so close to World War III.
Damn.
Right.
That's scary the way he just fucking put it. Listen.
I know that.
Listen.
Setting us up.
We're on the verge of World War III. We may already be in it, but it hasn't been labeled yet.
Not really ignited yet.
Like, that's fucking scary fucking reality right there. To have them words worded like that.
They're playing little cotton ball games right now. Ew. Wait till the. Oh my God. You're gone. I haven't even finished talking.
Wow.
There
Hasn't
could
even
be
labeled yet.
100,000 or more potential terrorists on American soil right now today, given what's happened at the southern border.
Let me go back 20 seconds.
There could be 100,000 or more potential terrorists on American soil right now today, given what's happened.
100,000.
More than that.
We know it's more than that, but 100,000. That's just one too many for me. One is just too many for me.
And at the southern border.
Correct.
And we do have Venezuela, Congo, others that are emptying their prisons of their most dangerous criminals with one caveat: we'll let you out, but you go to the United States.
I believe every country is doing it.
Yeah. And it's,
by the way, if you were the head of a
We're the
country,
boiling pot
you'd be the
of
first one to do it. I know you. You'd say, "What? Let's get rid of these." You know the money they save, and
We're not a boiling pot anymore. We're a fucking landfill of fucking dysfunction. A landfill. because every country is taking their most garbage motherfucking people and flying them over here. We're not a melting pot no more. That melting pot turned into a big
And only
ass
the
fucking
people with money
landfill.
can pack up and leave America. The rest of us have to deal with it until we find
That's
a
why
way
I
to
say, people, do
smuggle
not.
ourselves out of this country.
Yeah, that's why I say, America, do not be afraid of these people that are coming here illegally. Stand your ground and say, we will not take your shit. You will go back home. We
And
will.
remember,
You got to free.
America is pretty much the only country on this planet that has gun rights, and we have lots.
Yep.
Of guns. Lots.
Stand
of
your
guns.
ground, America.
Nobody can even
Like I said,
imagine the guns we got.
Be that backbone that America needs right now, because our government's not doing it for us.
You love your generation.
The current government is letting them in, and majority of America is okay with it. Over in New York, they had to close schools down so these illegals could have a place to sleep, a place to stay. So now our children of America are now lacking education because we got to accommodate illegals. Don't be afraid of them, people.
COVID way.
Because these people, they're all the bad ones coming in, just like they're saying right here. All the bad ones are coming in and have been coming in. Not just from the southern border, but they are coming through Canada too. That would be more the people coming from like the Middle East, them kind of people.
Danger, they say.
And look at this map that I did a show about this. The red is where Chinese government has funded buying major farmland.
Yeah.
And then superimpose.
Hold on. Look at no. What the fuck? No, go back.
Superimposed on that are some of our most
Come on, go. Okay. Wow, Chinese has bought up a lot of agriculture land in California.
And it looks like they just bought up that island they got
Yep.
down.
They bought a lot of land on the big island of Hawaii. They fuck. They got some up in just northern part. It looks like Portland, Hood River area maybe. And what's
like
that?
Baker,
Pendleton,
yeah.
Pendleton area. And then
up here you got Spokane.
There's that little tip way up in Washington that's physically connected to the Canadian border, and it looks like the Tacoma area. They got a big chunk in western Utah, Central.
You might as well say they got the whole of Central California, of course.
Yeah,
Mexico.
The whole southwest of the U.S. These are the farmlands that China has bought up, you guys, okay? So it looks like they bought up areas around Texas, around the major cities like Austin, Dallas, Houston. What's up here in the Panhandle? Is that Amarillo? We got one little chunk in Colorado, which is right there on the Kansas border, and Nebraska.
So that's basically the twin cities of Liberty and Kansas City.
Okay. And then you got like the little dot in the center of Kansas. One little dot in, what would that be? Like southeast Nebraska? Kind of like southeast Nebraska.
Yeah, like northwest Nebraska. No, that's
and then you got Missouri. That's all up
Monsanto's.
It looks like Kansas City area, and then down the main interstate here. They don't show interstate, but I know that state. They bought up a lot of farmland over in eastern Illinois, little couple parts in Indiana, 3, 4 little spots in Ohio. Why they choose Maine is beyond me.
Seafood industry.
They bought up a lot of land in along the coastal area of North Carolina. There's some in South Carolina. There's a whole bunch down in the lower panhandle of Florida. Couple little spots around Georgia, which is mainly around Atlanta. One little speck in Mississippi. Hold on, guys. Oh, and there was, it looks like maybe, I think that's Maui, the one that got burnt down. Looks like China just bought up a bunch of that shit. And with all that being said, around the more populated areas where the bigger chunks of these farmlands are, you have Joint Base Lewis McChord. That's in the Tacoma area. These are our air bases, our military bases. Sorry, our military bases that these farmlands are near. I've spoke about this before. So they have here Joint Base Lewis McLeod. Like I said, that's the Tacoma area. You have Hill Air Force Base in Utah, Utah Test and Training Range. Wow. Really spying on our training. Let's see, Dugway Proving Ground. Then you got Camp Pendleton. Whiteman Air Force Base over in Missouri. See Naval Station Norfolk over in Virginia. Fort Liberty in North Carolina. So, like, I've stated this before, you guys, that China was buying up a lot of farmland around our military bases. And it's not. So,
And
yeah.
it isn't going to continue to be used for farming.
No,
either.
it's to spy. Like, they
There
got
are
legit farmers out there. I bet right now, if you were to raid their land, you would find underground stations of their covert operations of Spy on America. Let's get back to this.
Strategic military bases. And you can see there's Dugway Proving Ground. That's military equipment, biological, chemical weapons. They're surrounding it. Utah Test Training Range, the largest supersonic authorized restricted airspace in the United States. Whiteman Air Force Base, B-2 Spirit Stealth Bomber Base, missile drone operations, MQ-9 Reaper, Global Strike Command 3, Air Force, entire Bomber Force Nuclear Command, Control, and Communications.
What's up, Nikki?
Fort Liberty, Airborne Special Operations Forces, Rapid Deployment. We've allowed them to come in and buy up agricultural land.
Did you hear that, you guys? We've allowed them to come in and buy up agricultural land.
Look how welcoming our
That's
president
the
was
disguise.
to the leader of China. Had all the homeless cleared out and cleaned the streets up and put Chinese flags on our sidewalk for them.
That was a disgrace. It should have been
Just
our
to show
flags.
him- They wanted to show them their little.
If I was there in
mini-nuclear
person,
program.
and they put gates up along the strip that, his route too. Let me tell you, if I was there in person, I could spit pretty far. I would have spit on his fucking car. Fuck you, President of China.
Wind farms, no wind, no blades on some of the towers, but they're surrounding our military bases.
Oh,
We've allowed that to take place. You may come in and inherit all of this, and it may get worse over the next 5 months. What are you going to do about that?
Well, first of all, you mentioned a thing, Fort Liberty. Used to be Fort Bragg. We won world wars from Fort Bragg.
Yes.
And they changed the name. And I don't even want to say that they spent $37 million in doing it, because that's not the most important thing, but that's a lot of money.
It's a waste of money.
Now, I will say this. We want to let people come in and invest in our country at the same time.
Of course.
We want them to come and invest. We don't want to make it so impossible. We have to be careful. And this is a lot of land. what disturbs me as much, because we don't want to, say we're not going to let anyone come in and invest. That would be a bad thing. When I
But
was
they don't
young,
need to buy around our.
no, they seem
Exactly.
To be,
Don't need to
a lot of
buy
activity
near
around
our
the
bases.
nuclear sites, to put it mildly. But the thing was, when you mentioned Fort Liberty, I remember that battle. As soon as I got out, they changed it. But they changed many names, almost all of them. They changed the names of these forts. Well, we won 2 world wars and plenty of other things. And there's a great anger about that.
Well, as you know, they call it presentism. What they do is they take today's cultural standards and apply it to people's conduct 100 years ago, as though 100 years ago they were supposed to predict what the standards were going to be 100 years in the future and behave the way things were going to be 100 years in the future. You can't do that. It's like you drive through a neighborhood when the speed limit is 20, then they come and change it to 10 and say, I'm going to give you a retroactive ticket. And that's what they're doing. They're holding these people to the standards of today's mores and folkways based on how they behave back and in
That's
that
right.
time. It's called presentism. And so they say, oh no, we've got to take these statues down. We've got to change these names because they were behaving in ways that we wouldn't accept today. Well, but it was accepted back then. I'm not saying it's our brightest hour. I'm not saying it's our
That's
most shining
history,
time.
though.
But these people
It's
also
history.
did great things, along with things that we may not be proud of today, but that's who they were at the time.
You can't erase history. And instead of
And if
look,
you can, then take
wait.
away my ugly childhood. History.
How can I word this with? Okay. Instead of looking at it bad like everyone has for the past few years when it comes to our history of how America came to be first, look instead of looking at it as negative, look at it as a positive. And what I mean by that, look how far we have come since then. And that's what it's all about. It's all about we're not going to repeat history. Let's change it. Let's once and for all change history instead of repeating the same thing over. That's all I mean on that. Instead of looking at it as a bad thing, yes, the beginning of American history was horrible. Very bad. But look how we've evolved since then. Not a whole lot, but we have evolved a little. And that's all it starts. That's all it takes to make, that's how a river starts. It starts out little. And then, more and more erosion happens and the river becomes bigger. And that's how it is,
It is never, if you know these people, because it's a group of people and they don't represent the big majority. Okay, they don't represent,
No.
but it's never good enough. No
I
matter
call
what you do.
No, I call it
it's
tyranny
never-
of the fringe.
Yeah, it's never good enough. You could do all the name changes, all of a sudden they find that's a problem. So, in
If
different
you
parts of the
inherit
country,
this, if you inherit bombs in Russia and you have to deal with Putin, if you inherit terrorists on our soil that
he's
could
going to
attack
fix
our
all
energy
that.
grid, how do you deal with that?
I will deal with it, and I'll get the war in Ukraine.
And he'll do it like a
settled
boss
done.
man.
By the time I get to office, as president-elect, I will get it done. As president-elect, you have great power. I was able to do great deals from the time I got elected in 2016. I was able to do great deals from the time I got elected to the time I got to office in that little, because you have great power there. You need the power of the presidency to do it. I'm going to get the war in Ukraine if it's not done by that time. Now, it looks like it's getting worse. They're taking weapons now where they can shoot deep into Russia. Where is this going? Here's the problem with Ukraine, which is right next to, we have an ocean in between. They're in for a tiny fraction of what we're in for. And I know them very well because I did it with NATO. I said, you people are delinquent. We're paying almost the entire cost of NATO. So they, excuse the word, they screw us on trade. And then on top of that, we're supposed to defend them. And they said, it doesn't work that way. But I didn't want to do that on my first. I let them know my first. When I came back, I didn't want to do it. I was in office for like 2 weeks. And I'm saying, but I said, you're not paying your way. And I went back the second time and I said, you have to pay. Hundreds of billions of dollars was paid. They asked me one question: will you defend us against Russia if we haven't paid? I said, absolutely not. As soon as I said that, oh, and I took a lot of heat from the fake news. The fake news went crazy when I said that because I said I won't defend them. Now you have the same thing. They paid hundreds of billions of dollars quickly, and that's where it got all the money to do what they're doing now. But remember this. So we are.
What's up, Juanito?
We're probably in for $250 billion. You know, they just got 62 billion, and now I heard today that they need more money. It's going to never end. Now, you have some people that say it's not a war that should have ever been started. It would have never started if I was president. Putin would have never done it. First of all, energy went up so much that he makes money on it. You know, when you get up to $100 a barrel, I had it at $40 a barrel, Phil. It's so different. But it would have never happened. But now it has happened. You know, I sometimes I hate to say almost that it would never have happened. And Israel would have never happened. The attack on October 7th would have never happened because Iran was broke and Iran wasn't funding Hamas and they weren't funding any of the terrorists, Hezbollah, all of them. There's like 28 of them. They had no money. They were
Until
broke.
they start taking
I
our
said to
tax
China,
dollars.
if you buy oil from Iran, you can't do business in the United States. They didn't want to take any chance on that. Everybody stopped. And we had no terrorist attacks. And I never wanted to talk about it when I was president because I didn't want to jinx it. I wanted to get up and say, we have had no terror. Think of it. During my 4 years, we had no terrorist attacks. This nation is in such danger right now with the people that you're just talking about coming in. And it was interesting because I saw 29,000 Chinese people and they showed it on camera. They looked very strong.
And guys, and with that part being said, check this out. When Trump does make it into office, those very things they're talking about will start to happen. We will have blood on our soil. That's why I said we need to, like, America, we people need to pull their heads at their asses and see the real picture for what it is.
They all have their propane stoves. They all have cell phones. They look like military people.
A lot of military-age men. have
Yeah,
come
they're
in.
mostly men, and they're mostly of a perfect age for military. And it's almost like, what are they doing? Building a military organization within our country with our help?
Yep,
We have
exactly.
people running our country who are grossly incompetent, headed up by a president who should never be there.
How do you unravel that?
Well, you have to do it with people, and we'll do it. Look, I have the same thoughts as you do. You know, a lot of common sense to this stuff. It's not, we talked about it before. Conservative, liberal, I don't care. It's common sense. We need borders. We need low taxes. We need good education. We need a strong military. I rebuilt the entire military. The entire military was rebuilt. I built a wall that was so great. And I got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers while I was building the wall to keep people out. We didn't have what we have today. We had the lowest day the week that I left office, and it was a sad day for this country. The week that I left office, that's when we had our lowest illegal flow of immigrants coming into our country. And all Biden had to do was leave it in place. I had a thing called Remain in Mexico. They had a Remain in Mexico. How good is that? They had catch and release in Mexico. It was so stupidly run. And all Biden had to do when he goes to the beach, you know, he's always in the beach, right? He thinks it looks good in the bathing suit. Some advisor said, go to the beach, you look great, Joe. And he can't even lift the chair, which weighs about 6 ounces. You know, those chairs that you can lift. They're meant for children and old people to lift. So Joe is in the sand and he's in the beach.
Crooked ass
And he's totally decimating everything that we built. We built the strongest border in the history of our country, and we're going to do it again. Just one little thing. In 2016, I got elected maybe because of the border. But that border was a fraction. It was nothing compared to what the border is today. And I fixed it. And, you know, in 2020, when I ran, I couldn't even talk about it. Nobody wanted to hear about the border because I fixed it. I'll fix it again. But the border today is many, many times worse than it was in 2016.
Well, I've been to the border, and they just straight up say we're using tax dollars to send some of these children that are coming across the border into known prostitution rings, into sweatshops. Because we
No, they
don't
know
have the
this
ability to
shit.
check. They're just sending them
Well, you
off.
know, we have 88,000 missing children. Now, can you imagine if that were Trump that had 88,000 missing children? 88,000, that's a Holocaust. That's as bad as I mean, think of it. These are young, very young children, and also women. They take women and they trade women. And I had it brought down to the lowest level because I had a border that was actually strong.
And you're going to take it back to that.
Oh, we're going to bring it back. And I think then some. You know, one thing, and you know this better than anybody, that you got to know people. It's about people. If you put a great person at the head of a big agency, lots of good things happen. In my business, if I have a good super in real estate, superintendent running one of my buildings, and if I move them to another building, sometimes you move them to another building but then that building, you need good people. And we had a lot of great people. I had some that I was very disappointed in. I was some that I was very, very disappointed in. But the one thing is that I was in Washington 17 times in my entire life. I never stayed over. That was reported by the news. I was very rarely there. I wasn't a Washington. I was a New York person. I was a builder in New York, a real estate guy. I had a wonderful company. Everything was going good. It would have been so easy to just to keep doing that. It was probably one of the most successful days of my life was the day before I announced I was running for president. Once you do this, the whole world changes. I even lost Oprah. Okay, Oprah liked me so much, and you know, I haven't spoken to her, I think, since.
He's not missing out. It's not a big loss. Trust me. It may be the best thing for Trump not to have
Yeah.
her
after
in
Epstein.
his circle, especially when she does have ties to Epstein Island. That's why I say, you know, you can't claim being molested as a child when you're doing the very exact same thing. I mean, there's physical proof that she's in his black book, you know, his call the fly log on the Lolita Express, whatever that his plane's name was,
Yeah.
you know. There's proof. So I think she fooled a shitload of people with that storyline.
Whole
And
life
she doesn't
period.
act like a victim of one either. You know, I'm not saying you got to be act it your whole entire life,
I
but
think she did play off that to start her little girls' school over in Africa.
yeah. Well, there's rumors about what's going on with that and
I'm doing
what
a good thing because I've been there. And
yeah, but listen to the rumors
but
that
it
are
was
now
all
coming
facade.
out. You know, I even said it years before the fucking rumors start coming out. Like, we don't hear about this great school over in Africa that Oprah started anymore. Now it's like, okay, this whole thing with Epstein happened, and now it's like, oh,
Questions are being asked.
yeah. Oh, there's that missing puzzle piece. That's right there.
That explains.
Oh, that's why we don't hear that. Just like we don't hear anything about the space station anymore.
Yeah.
Why? Because they got do up there. In case y'all don't know what do is, it's capital D period, capital E period, capital W period, and it stands for direct energy weapon, which is basically a laser beam. Okay, let's get back.
And we remember how Iraq was attacked and they caught Hussein and all of that, and it was all under the guise of weapons of mass destruction. So I asked, what is America's weapon of mass destruction? It's that lab up in the sky we don't hear about anymore. Think about it.
But she's a good person. Please give her my regards. But you know, you do things, and my attitude is you have to do what's right. If I didn't think that I won the election by a lot, I would have never run. And I don't think I've ever said this on air before. Maybe I have. But losing the election wouldn't have been that, you know, somebody wins, somebody loses. You go on with your life. But when you lose an election that you know you won by millions of votes, if I didn't think I won the election, I would have never done it a second because I would have lost. In other words, I would have lost. I ran because I won the election, and I know that that's what the people want. They want what you and I are talking about right now. They want strong borders and they want good education. They want all these things that we talked about, and we're going to get it to them. We're going to get it fast. Probably the hardest problem, the biggest problem is nuclear and the weaponry, and we have to keep out of wars and all that. But the hardest problem for our country is the millions and millions of people that have been brought into this country that have been dropped here. Many of them should not be here. They're really, really bad people from the jails, from the places. And you know what's going to happen? You'll take 10 out, and you'll have one where it's a woman with a couple of kids, and you're going to have the news say, oh, look at this, how horrible, how hard. It's a very hard thing to do. But we have to have the largest deportation effort in the history of our country. Dwight Eisenhower had it very early on, because he was one that wanted strong borders.
But you're not against immigration.
No, I'm totally for it. But
We need it.
Legally.
I think we need it desperately. But I don't
The
want their
right
prisoners,
way.
and I don't want their people from mental institutions, and I want people to come in legally. I want to let people come in. We need it. We do need it. We need people, but we need good people. We need people that aren't going to blow up our shopping centers and kill people.
Let me ask you two areas I want to talk to you
You
about.
see the word they put down below every time.
Going to be
it says
different because I'm
mental
different. So
institutions,
let me be different. You have a personality-driven platform, just like I do.
psychiatric
Mine's
facility.
a fraction of yours. You've taken every shot you can imagine. You've been criticized, attacked, called every name in the book. They've turned the judicial system against you, the intelligence community. 51 intelligence officers swear that this is a Russian plant, this laptop over here, right before the election. The media has turned against you, print, TV, radio, internet, in the streets. Not campaigning Donald Trump, just real Donald Trump. How do you deal with that stress in your most private moments?
So, two things. Number one, I don't like thinking about it. Out of sight, out of mind. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to think about it. Number two, I have tremendous support. I have the people's support. I think if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to handle it so easily. When a judge who has conflicts like nobody's ever had wants to put me in jail, when he puts a gag order and say, if you talk about these things, we're going to put you in jail. I'm the Republican candidate. I was president. I'm leading the Democrat by a lot. Wants to put me in jail. I like not to think about it. It's like they say, oh, don't eat that food, don't eat this food, don't do this, don't do that. They don't really know. It might be good for you. It might not be bad. It might be good. They say it causes cancer. I say, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear the word. I don't want to. It's out of sight, out of mind. I think I have a very good disposition for trauma. But I have great support, Phil. The one thing is, because you mentioned lots of groups, and you're right about that. But I also have great support within the media. You know, there's a group of people in the media. You might be one of them. You're a very important force. The fact is, I've watched you so long. I just felt so confident when you called. I said, you know, otherwise, what do I have to subject myself to it for? It doesn't make sense. But I find it to be a very different and very interesting it's a psychological interview that you're doing too. You're sort of being my psychiatrist, and maybe I could use a psychiatrist every once in a while. No, it's pretty cool. But I try not to think about. I try not to go into that. And very importantly, I have tremendous support. I have support from the people. You look at the polls, and they agree with me. There's sort of a silent majority. You know, it's a term that's been used over the years, but it's a true term. I have the support of many more people than they have, if we call they the bad guys. And I think if I didn't, or if I felt I didn't, I would not be quite the same person.
You know, we all have a personal truth. You know, it's what we believe about ourselves when we don't have our mask on. When we don't, you know, I put on a nice suit. You know, I'm going to see the president here.
Nice suit.
I want to be credible.
That's good.
And we, you know, we put our best foot forward when we step out into the world. But we do have a personal truth that what we believe about ourselves at our most vulnerable, when nobody's looking, nobody's listening. Maybe it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We wake up looking at the ceiling, thinking, what the hell am I doing? What do you say to yourselves when the crowds aren't cheering? When you're home alone, you're riding in the car, you're by yourself. What is the hardest, darkest moment that you can think of in this journey you've been on the last several years?
You have to be very strong. You're fighting off very evil forces, and they're very smart forces. There are people that control Biden. Totally true. I think I know who they are largely. But there are people that control. They're very smart, very energetic. Possibly they're real believers, what their sick ideology is. But you have to be smart, and you have to have confidence. I mean, you have to have a certain confidence. The other thing is, I realized over the years, I've been through a lot, great and bad. I won the presidency. Everybody said, how are you going to do it? How good is that? It was the most incredible evening, one of the most incredible evenings in the history of the country. Look at the celebration. I mean, it was incredible. But you also go through bad. I understand fully that the bad also disappears. In other words, you'll go through bad moments and it disappears. It's sort of funny because I've watched your show a lot over the years.
It's almost done.
See, I'm not ashamed to say it because some people say, oh, you watch Dr. Phil. Well, your show is a very smart show. And I've watched you ask a question similar to that to some couple or and they break down, they start crying on the show. I said, that's never happening to me. If that happens to me, that's the end of my political career. I think maybe people would like me better. But I'll tell you what, you need strength. You have to have strength. And people don't want to see that. I've watched so many people, you break down people that they don't even know they're being broken down. But it's different.
Well, that's the last thing I want to do with you, but I do want people to know you. I want people to know every aspect of you, and I know it about myself. I know that not every time is a great day, not every time is a hard day.
I thought you led a charmed life. You never had a problem in your life, right?
Yeah. I watched you during that trial. That's not a fun time.
It was an icebox. That courtroom was so cold.
Really?
And I believe it was set that way by the judge. That courtroom was freezing. I'd call it the icebox, right? I'd say, I just sat through 4 hours, and I'm not campaigning by doing that. That's what angered me. They're taking away my voice. They're keeping me in this icebox, and they're taking away my voice. But, one thing that's, you bring it up, and you haven't asked me the question yet, and I'm sure you will, although I know we've been doing this for quite a while, and it's an honor to do it. But the hardest part for me is probably my family, because it's very unfair to my family. I have a very good wife. She reads this crap. I have great kids. You know what amazed me? I gave up my salary. I didn't take salary. And it's $450,000, approximately $450,000 a year. So, it's still money. It's a couple of $1 million. I never had a good story saying I did. I'm not looking for a story. What surprised me is there was a couple of stories. Who else did it? Nobody. Everybody I figured maybe Kennedy, it's a pretty rich family. I figured the only one that may have done it was George Washington. George Washington was a very wealthy landowner. And they said the only one that may have done it is George Washington. I figured Roosevelt, maybe FDR. There's some pretty rich presidents. Every president took their salary. Bush's took their salary. I didn't take my salary. I gave it up. And every month, I'd get a call from the fake news. Because you can't really give it up. You have to give it to an organization within government. You're not allowed to actually give it. So what happens? You get the check, and then you give it to Health and Human Services, or you give it to the Navy, or you give it to the Army, or something. And every month they say, "Did he give it? Did he give it?" And when you show them that you gave it, there was no story. It was just interesting to see. The whole system is rigged. I mean, it's just a nasty system. But the saddest is, I'll give you one quick example. I have a son, Don. He's a good kid. And he wants to help people. And they said he was involved with Russia. He knows less about Russia than that young person sitting right over there, who I'm sure knows nothing about Russia. And it was Adam Shifty Schiff, a bad guy. And he comes out of the so-called intelligence meeting, and he goes to a microphone, and there's a lot of press gathered, because this was during the Russia hoax, total hoax. It had nothing to do. 5 million phone calls. I had not one phone call to Russia. It was a hoax, and it came out that way, and it's nice, but it took 2.5 years. And by the way, it was very dangerous, because At least Putin understood it was a hoax. You know, he used to say, he thought we were crazy, to be honest with you. He thought we were crazy. But Don, so they say, Adam Schiff comes out and says, Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail because of what he's done with Russia. And it was Adam Schiff and Hillary Clinton and some others in the DNC that they made up a story. Think of how bad you have to be. You make up a phony story about Russia, the Russia hoax. You have the dossier, you have the whole thing. It's all fake. They paid $12 million or something for the dossier. $12 million. They gave this guy Steele a fortune to do a fake story. It's called the fake dossier, right?
Mm-hmm.
They go to my son. They know it's fake. It's not like they think it's real. They know it's a fake because they made it up. And they say, Donald Trump Jr. will go to jail. So I call up my son. I said, are you okay? Is there something I don't know? How bad do you have to be when you can say about a story that you made up that you know is fake, that my son is going to go to jail because of the story?
How do you deal with that as a father? Because I've had it happen to me. You've met Jordan.
Yes.
And my other son, Jay. I've had stories about them. And it infuriates me.
I called him up. I knew it wasn't true, but I said, hey, this guy, these are not stupid people. I call him Watermelon Head. He's got the thinnest neck I've ever seen, how it holds up that head. He's got a neck that's about a size 6. Very unattractive guy, both inside and outside. And people say, oh, that's such a terrible thing to say. It's okay. Very unattractive guy. Here's the thing. These are bad people. And it's not easy to deal with. You know, when you have your kids involved or your family, your wife, and you read stuff, most of it is untrue. It's just totally untrue. But think of that. They make up a story and then they say your son's going to jail for something that they know is false. These are bad people.
Is that harder to take than when they're talking about you?
Yeah, for me it is. For me, I've become, I've become different. Maybe it would have been tougher. I think the fact that I have such unbelievable support helps me a lot. It doesn't bother me.
Has it bothered you? Has there been blowback on Barron because he's younger and more vulnerable?
It's not easy. And he's a great kid. He's a good student. He's, got accepted to different colleges. Some of those colleges, all of a sudden, they're riding all over the place. You're saying, but he's a good boy. He's a tall boy. Very tall. He's very tall. And he's a great kid. He's a good-looking kid. And, he's going to be going to college. But he doesn't say it. And I think he doesn't say it because he doesn't want to hurt me, or he thinks it's possibly a hurtful conversation. But it has to affect my family. And I think that's really unfair because I have a very good family. I have good kids. I have a wonderful wife. I mean, it's not easy for her to read this kind of stuff. That's fake. That's fake stuff. But that's the way it is. It certainly is not a good thing. And it affects me more than it would if it were just about me. I wish it could be just about me.
How's she holding up through all of this?
I think good, but I don't think it's an easy thing for her. And I think if it wasn't good, she wouldn't want to tell me about it, to be honest with you, because, she sees that I'm fighting like hell. I'm trying to become president and make America great again. That's what we're going to do. We're going to make America great again. They put tremendous obstacles in our way, including the 20 million people that are going to be in here by the time this guy gets out. It's an election we have to win. We're not going to have a country left if we don't win this election.
Have you ever thought that the toll that it takes on your family is too much? There are headlines out there that say, when you win your second term, you are going to make the people that have come after you pay. Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity to step up and say, you know what, it stops here, it stops with me.
I think you'll be impressed. We have to unite the country. We have to save the country.
You're watching Merit Street. Stay tuned for a live town hall discussion immediately following Dr. Phil's interview with President Trump.
Have you ever thought that the toll that it takes on your family is too much?
Maybe not in the way you expressed. That's a very interesting way of expression, actually, of that question.
Oh, shit.
I haven't really.
Those haven't
I think to a certain
down.
extent, I think that my family wants me to do it. Our country's in trouble. We could be in a world war very soon. We could be. We're going to
They're gonna
end
fall
the
down when they
problem.
make that
Think of it.
turn.
We're going to end Ukraine fast. I'm going to end it fast. I know both. I know Zelensky. I know Putin very well. I'm going to get it ended. That
That's
is a
gonna
horror show
land
that's
someone
going
in
on
the
over there.
hospital.
But think of it. Why are we hundreds of billions of dollars more money? Why is this happening? Why is Europe spending a fraction of the money that we're spending? There's so many different things about that that are just wrong. But my family's good. My family loves this country, and I think they feel that I do a good job. Look, we had the most successful country we've ever had during my time. We had the greatest economy in history of any country.
Do they want you to run, or do they tolerate you running?
Interesting question. Well, they tolerate it, but
They at least tolerate it.
yeah, they tolerate it. I think they love the country. I think they think that I do a good job. I think they feel that a lot of people say that this is nobody. I get it so often, and I'm not sure it's right. They say there's nobody else that can straighten out this country. And again, Viktor Orban said just recently, he's a strong man from a very interesting country, and he knows Russia very well. He knows Zelensky very well. He knows Ukraine. But he said the only one, Hungary, he said the only one that's going to straighten this out is Trump. Because he didn't use the word respect. He used the word, they were afraid of him. I don't want to say that about these people, these other leaders. I don't want to say they were afraid. I'm not going to use that term. But let's use the word respect. They respected me. They respected me, and they respected our country. And they knew if they played games, I was going to hit the hell out of them with tariffs and lots of other things. We have a lot of weapons, not just military weapons. I rebuilt our entire military, by the way. Our entire military is rebuilt. And this person that we have leading us, if you can call the word leading with quotes, he gave away $85 billion worth of brand new military equipment in Afghanistan. In my opinion, the lowest day in the history of our country. I think probably the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country was what happened, the way we pulled out of Afghanistan. We left people behind. We had 13 soldiers who I met the parents. They're devastated, killed. Nobody ever talks about, you would talk about them. I put them right at the top. 38 soldiers who are no arms, no legs, faces just wiped out. They're trying to live, trying to live. Nobody ever talks about that. They talk about 13 dead, absolutely. But they don't talk about 38 soldiers that have been wiped out. And then hundreds of people were also killed. Hundreds of people where this madman set off a bomb. Should have never left from there. Should have been in Bagram. We should have kept Bagram. Bagram is 1 hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons. We gave it up. You know who's occupying Bagram?
China.
Right now? China. Yeah. China. We gave the biggest Air Force base, one of the biggest runways, one of the most powerful runways, 8 foot thick of concrete, built when the dollar was very big, okay? Years ago. We gave it to the Chinese. It should have never happened. What we've done, I think that was the most embarrassing day. And I have to tell you, if that didn't happen, I don't know that Putin would have gone in. I think Putin watched that catastrophe and he said, hey, this is a great time to attack Ukraine.
You think it emboldened him?
I think so, yeah, I think so.
Let me ask you this. Right now, headlines everywhere, of course, you don't respect, but there are headlines out there that say, when you win your second term, that you are going to make the people that have come after you pay. Retribution and revenge.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this before you even respond to that. I want to play what if with you for a minute. What if when you win this election, you said, enough is enough. Too much is too much. This is a race to the bottom, and it stops here. It stops now. They've made a half a dozen or more major attempts to take you off the playing board, and you just said, it stops now. I am going to rise above this cycle of ugly. I'm not going to play this gotcha retribution game. It stops now. I'll forgive. I'll not ever forget, but I am not going to play this retribution game. I am going to put the American people first, not getting my pound of flesh first. You got to do what you got to do, but I'm going to put this country as the shining city on the hill. I am moving forward. I'm not playing the retribution game. It stops with me and it stops here. What if you took that approach?
I'm okay with that. I am. I'm okay with that. Sometimes, I'm sure in certain moments, I wouldn't be. When you go through what I've been through, they spied on my campaign. They spied on my campaign. Remember, I announced it.
What?
They did things that people don't even talk about. And I got rid of Comey, and I got rid of a lot of people. I got rid of a lot of people, thousands of people at the VA. I cleaned it, 9,000 people. They were sadists. I got rid of. But what they've done is bad. With all of that being said, we have to unite the country, Phil. The country has to be united. This country is a mess.
Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity for you to stop this cycle, this vicious cycle of gotcha, gotcha back, gotcha, gotcha back. Every situation needs a hero. What a great opportunity to step up and say, you know what, it stops here, it stops with me.
I think you'll be impressed. We have to unite the country. We have to save the country. That's not really saving the country. There are people that did some bad things. I know who they are and all of that. But as an example, with Hillary Clinton, I'd mention her name. Everyone's screaming, thousands and thousands. Yeah, we just had 107,000 people show up in New Jersey. You saw that. 25,000 people showed up in the South Bronx.
In the South Bronx.
But we had Wildwood, New Jersey. 107,000 people was a record. They've never had that. When I mention
people are speaking up.
Previous to the last election, they said, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. But I would be there, and I'm trying to almost quiet them now. They were going crazy. How would it be I win, and I lock Hillary Clinton up? The president's wife, the former president's wife, I locked her up. And how would it be if I took the Secretary of State, Chief Secretary of State, and we threw her into a prison someplace? I think it was terrible. And yet now they're trying to do that with me. Think of it. I didn't want to do that. I could have done that pretty easily. She busted up her phones and she busted up her laptops and what they did. And they put bleach bit. You know what bleach bit is? It's so expensive nobody uses it because it's an acid and it wipes everything out. Could have done it real easy. Don't forget, she disobeyed a subpoena.
It's kind of going all out, don't you think?
And she broke up all this machinery, all this technology after she got the subpoena. Think of it. How would it look if I took a president of the United States wife and threw her into a prison? I hated it because I wanted to bring the country together, and I largely did. And I brought it together through success because it was the most successful economy in the history of our country. Okay. Now, the difference is they're trying to do it to me. And maybe you could feel differently about it, but I don't feel differently. Retribution is going to be through success. We're going to make it very successful. We have to bring the country together.
And you can do that. Because let me tell you, this revenge thing there's a lot of research, and Dr. James Kimmel at Yale has done this research and seen neurologically in the brain that there's an addiction to revenge, just like to opioid or whatever. And that even if people commit a crime and they get arrested for it, they see themselves as the victim and they want revenge against the person that arrested them. And then the person that arrested them gets hammered. So now that person says, okay, well, I'm not going to put up with that. So they go back after the criminal. Now the criminal has been victimized again. And so we get into this loop where we're addicted to it back and forth. It's got to stop. And we're better than this. We must be better than this. And you're big enough to do it. Every situation needs a hero. You can stop this. You say, well, I think it ends here. It ends with me.
I think you'll be proud of the job we do. And, the word revenge is a very strong word, but maybe we have revenge through success. But that's what I'd like to see. I want to see the country survive, because this country is not going to survive like this. And really, the expression, I think it's the greatest theme ever in politics, man, because it's the biggest movement. We want to make America great again, and that's what we have to do. And I think you'd be very proud of the job we do.
The Pope has a book out that he's written, and he says, we are all brothers and sisters, and there must be no resentment among us. For any war to truly end, forgiveness is necessary. Otherwise, what will follow is not justice,
Who believes
but
the
revenge.
Pope these days?
And that's true even in the cultural wars that we're fighting here. I think you have so much.
The Vatican alone is responsible for pushing pedophiles through other churches around the fucking world. When they get in trouble in one place, instead of like dealing with the problem. We're just gonna put them over here so they can do the same thing. Just don't get caught this time, in my opinion.
To do, you don't have time to get even.
Revenge does take time. I will say that.
It does.
And sometimes revenge can be justified, though. I have to be honest.
No,
sometimes it can.
But is the country better or worse for them going after you?
I think the country is really worse for what they've done. And I think you see that when you look at the poll numbers, when you see that almost $400 million has poured in since this horrible decision was made. That was a few days ago. Numbers that nobody's ever heard of in politics before. It's a great honor. The people of our country get it. You know, they're very smart. Taken as a whole, I have to say they're very smart. But it's been an honor being with you. It really has. And I think you'd be very proud of the job we did.
You have rallied people. I had people in my focus group the other night that said, I have not voted for Trump before. I have not been a Trump fan before, but I have donated to Trump because he has inspired me. I have donated to him and I am voting for him now, and I have not before, but he has inspired me.
Actually, it's been a beautiful thing to watch. Thank you.
Mr. President, it's been an honor speaking with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That may have been the longest interview I've ever done. And you think Biden could do that interview? I don't think so.
Hell to the
There are
no.
2 questions. I think that would be the end of it. Anyway, this was it's crazy. It's crazy. He wouldn't do it. We covered a lot of territory.
You think he's going to run?
I have said no for a year. He said something yesterday that's very interesting. He should not be president, and it matters. It doesn't matter who runs against him. When he said that, I said, "Ooh, you know that, right? Did you hear that statement?"
Yeah.
He said it doesn't matter who runs against him. With all that being said, people say yes, he's going to just run.
I guess so. Are you going to tell me who your vice presidential choice
I
is?
can't yet, but we have some very good people. I'm going to do it in the convention. Come up during the convention. We'll do an interview.
I will.
Okay, this was an honor to be. Thank you, man.
All right.
Well, everyone, that's it. Thanks for coming in, hanging out. I thought it was a good interview. It was very
Somewhere they can find it.
if you want to watch it again, you might be able to find it on YouTube. I downloaded the Merit app, MERIT with a star
Dotting the I.
It's meritstreetmedia.com. I just recently downloaded it so I can actually watch this interview. It's free. I'm not having any issues with it. And there looks to be a lot of other good interviews that we will probably be touching bases on too. So, again, thank you for coming in, hanging out, whoops, and chilling. Stay blessed, everyone, and be safe. And remember, we the people are the backbone of America. Let's get strong again. And we are the resistance. Peace, everyone.